What was that? All right. Good morning, and thank you for joining us as we unveil the 2026 report card for North Carolina's infrastructure for the American Society of Civil Engineers. I'll ask the people in the audience to please silence your phone to minimize any disruptions. My name is Chaz Webb, and I'm the ASCE North Carolina Governor. I'm also the chair of the group of the ASCE members from across North Carolina who put together this report card. As a civil engineer, I spent more than 15 years working on a variety of infrastructure projects in North Carolina and Tennessee. I've seen firsthand the kind of impact that working and reliable infrastructure has on our businesses and communities. The report we're releasing today will only further amplify the public's awareness of these systems and why we must prioritize them. ASCE's North Carolina section was founded in 1923 and consists of 5 branches, 3 younger member groups, and 4 student chapters across the state. More than 2,500 North Carolinians are members of the American Society of Civil Engineers, and the National Society has more than 160,000 members worldwide. ASCE is both the oldest and largest engineering society in the nation. As civil engineers, we are responsible for the design, construction, and maintenance of infrastructure that keeps our communities safe and healthy. Those systems also serve as the backbone of North Carolina's economy. Infrastructure affects the life of everyone daily. When it is functioning as planned, it is often out of sight and out of mind. But when infrastructure encounters a serious problem or a system fails, the consequences can affect people's quality of life and have serious, widespread economic impact. The damage North Carolina saw from Tropical Storm Helene in 2024 demonstrates just how vital our infrastructure is and the long-lasting and wide-ranging consequences of an infrastructure failure. And an event like Helene is a dramatic example of what can happen to infrastructure. We also experience the realities of underinvesting in our infrastructure every day, whether it is a pothole damaging your car or time spent stuck in traffic. These are issues every state in the nation is dealing with. That's why it's so important for infrastructure to be built with resilience in mind to withstand natural and man-made disasters. It's also important to support infrastructure with reliable, consistent funding so roads, bridges, water supplies, and other infrastructure systems can receive proper maintenance to reduce long-term costs and keep our communities moving. ASCE works to raise awareness of the need to maintain and modernize the nation's infrastructure using sustainable and resilient practices. We advocate for increasing and optimizing investment in infrastructure and work to improve engineering knowledge. For those of you who are new to the ASCE report card, our state report follows the model set by the National Report Card for America's Infrastructure, which is released once every 4 years. The National Report Card for America's Infrastructure was released in March of last year, and this report is consistently the most highly cited infrastructure report in the country. The nation received the highest grade ever since ASCE began the report card series in 1998, taking home a cumulative grade of C. While we know we can do better, positive steps have been taken in recent years, particularly through record levels of federal investment in our built environments. We know North Carolina has its unique characteristics and unique trends and challenges, especially as a state with geography that ranges from low-lying coastal areas like the Outer Banks to the mountains of Western North Carolina. Our state also has large, fast-growing urban population centers like Raleigh-Durham and Charlotte, along with hundreds of other smaller communities. That's why it's so important to have an updated report on our state's infrastructure conditions, needs, and future outlook to pair with the national assessments. Now it is my pleasure to pass the baton to Pat Gilmartin, President of ASCE's North Carolina section, to unveil the grades.
Thank you, Chaz, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. The 2026 report card for North Carolina's infrastructure includes grades for 7 categories, as well as a cumulative grade for the entire state. These 7 categories are the state's airports, bridges, dams, drinking water, roads, stormwater, and wastewater. This report is a snapshot of our infrastructure conditions and serves as a tool to start a conversation about where we are and what can be done to improve infrastructure in North Carolina. Each category is assessed by a team of civil engineers who assign the grades according to the following 8 criteria. Those grading criteria are capacity, condition, funding, future need, operation and maintenance, public safety, resilience, and innovation. I want to emphasize, this report is a reflection on the condition and capacity of the systems we have in place, the funding made available to fix issues or maintain strengths, and their current and anticipated ability to withstand stressors, such as extreme weather patterns and population shifts. These grades are not a reflection of the people and agencies who work hard to operate and maintain those systems with the resources made available to them. Now that you have some background and context about the report card, let's unveil the grades. Thank you, Chaz. The overall grade for North Carolina's infrastructure is a C-. That's one step below the national report card grade of a C that was released in March of last year. On a positive note, 4 of the 7 grades are better than their counterparts in the national report card. While our grade is below the national grade, there are still some positive trends in our state's infrastructure systems. North Carolina's roads and bridges both received C- grades on the report card. As North Carolina continues to see rapid growth, the state's highways and bridges are seeing traffic at levels many roads and bridges were not designed for. One very positive trend with roads in our state is their overall condition. Only 1.5% of our state's non-interstate highway road miles are in poor condition, compared with 39% nationwide. We've also seen a dramatic improvement in the condition of North Carolina's bridges over the past decade. In 2014, nearly 23% of bridges in the state were in poor condition. In 2024, that decreased to 8%, which is still higher than the national average of 6.5%, but a substantial improvement in a very short amount of time. That's in part due to a rapid increase in bridge funding, growing from $150 million in 2015 to $482 million for fiscal year 2025. Even as funding increases, the need continues to grow. If funding remains at current level, the state estimates will have a $479 million funding gap for bridges in fiscal year 2027. In addition to this, one of the primary sources to fund highways and bridge repairs and replacement loses value every day. Revenue from the state's gas tax is losing value as more fuel-efficient cars use less gasoline and many drivers switch to hybrid or even fully electric vehicles. In addition to this, high labor and material costs are making construction projects more expensive and forcing leaders to make difficult choices about where limited funding is spent. North Carolina's airports also received a C- grade. Our state's aviation systems generate $88 billion in economic impact every year. That's 14% of North Carolina's gross domestic product. Passenger traffic grew 20% between 2021 and 2023 as air travel returned to normal after pandemic-era shutdowns. Raleigh-Durham International Airport has seen passenger numbers double over the last 15 years and has seen dozens of new domestic and international routes added. However, with added air traffic, there are now more delays, nearly a quarter of all commercial flights delayed in 2024. More flights are also stressing traffic control systems, with many towers facing consistent staffing shortages. Water is our most valuable resource, and North Carolina's drinking water systems receive the highest grade on the report card of a C+. As more people move to North Carolina, water utility operators are expanding capacity to ensure North Carolinians have safe, reliable drinking water. However, much of the existing water distribution infrastructure is at or near the end of its service life. Many smaller water utilities generate most of their revenue from monthly water bills and may not have the funding available for large capital projects. It is estimated North Carolina will have $20 billion in drinking water needs over the next 30 years, which includes infrastructure improvements and ensuring water utilities are following new requirements to reduce the levels of dangerous forever chemicals in our water supply. Extreme storms also test our water-related infrastructure, like dams, stormwater, and wastewater treatment plants. North Carolina's dams received the lowest grade on the report card of a D+. There are nearly 7,500 dams across the state, which serve a variety of purposes. Recent extreme weather have demonstrated how important dams are to protecting communities from potentially disastrous flooding. The failure of the Longleaf Golf Club Dam after Tropical Storm Chantel exposed some vulnerabilities in our state's dams. Nearly half of North Carolina's high hazard dams, potential dams, don't have an emergency action plan. These emergency action plans are critical to ensuring communities are prepared if one of those dams fails, which could potentially lead to loss of life or damage to homes and businesses. Many of these dams are past their useful service life, vulnerable to extreme weather, and need to be repaired or replaced. It is estimated it will take nearly $6 billion to get dams across North Carolina into a state of good repair, well beyond the budget of the state's Dam Safety Board. Finally, I want to talk about North Carolina's stormwater and wastewater systems. These systems are often out of sight and out of mind, but play an important role to the state's environment and to public health. Our state's wastewater systems received a D+ grade. North Carolina has invested more than $6 billion in these systems, but only about half of the estimated $12 billion in wastewater needs. Tropical Storm Helene caused extensive damage to the many wastewater systems, causing billions of dollars in damage. Wastewater systems are heavily dependent upon grants from the state or federal government for repairs and upgrades, because of user fees primarily cover the day-to-day operations of these systems alone. Many wastewater systems are aging and leaky, which makes them less efficient and consumes valuable treatment capacity in some cities. Additionally, half of North Carolina's homes aren't on wastewater systems and rely on decentralized systems like septic tanks, which are largely unregulated. Finally, I want to talk about our state's stormwater systems, which received a C- grade. Like other water systems we talked about, many stormwater utilities have aging pipes and plants and face extensive upgrade costs in the near future. These systems are being tested by increased development and increasing severe weather events with heavy rainfall, overwhelming systems that were built decades ago, when these now common weather events were much less frequent. If you want to read more about the report card, you can read the entire report at infrastructure.org/north-carolina. As to where we go from here, we know our state can do better than a C-, and ASCE has some recommendations to raise the grade. First, increased investment is needed to meet growing demand driven by population growth and more intense storm events. Targeted funding will help ensure that drinking water and wastewater systems, transportation infrastructure such as roads and bridges, and dams can continue to operate safely and reliably under increased stress. We also need to focus on resilience. Recent storms, such as Tropical Storm Helene and Hurricanes Matthew and Florence, have demonstrated North Carolina's resilience, while highlighting the need for the state to be prepared for the next major disaster, including updating emergency action plans across the state. Safety needs to be a top priority. North Carolina faces significant safety risks, with 463 high hazard dams and rising vehicle fatalities per 100,000 residents over the past decade. Strengthening dam safety inspection programs and adopting comprehensive roadway safety strategies such as Vision Zero will be essential to reducing risks and improving public safety statewide. We also need to grow. Capacity, specifically for aging water-related infrastructure, is needed. Many wastewater and stormwater systems are past their design life cycle and are in need of upgrades. Repairing these systems will help to address water quality, flooding, and erosion concerns. Finally, technology. Relying on improving technologies such as green infrastructure and artificial intelligence will help to address challenges of increasing funding while improving infrastructure, all while maintaining the quality of life in North Carolina. So with that, I'd like to hand it back to Chaz to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Pat. Our first speaker today is Reed Wilson, Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Secretary Wilson has a long history of experience in environmental protection, land conservation, and government nonprofit leader to DEQ. He's been the Secretary of DEQ since 2025, and before that served as the NC Department of Natural and Cultural Resources Secretary from 2021 to 2024. Secretary Wilson, thank you very much for joining us today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chaz, for that introduction. It's great to be here with the American Society of Civil Engineers North Carolina section. Thank you all for joining us this chilly morning. I appreciate all that engineers do to build a strong economy in North Carolina in a way that supports a healthy environment and healthy families. Your excellent work as engineers, one reason why CNBC yet again ranked North Carolina the #1 state for business. Thank you for that. And thank you also for this opportunity to say a few words about DEQ's priorities and infrastructure. Every day, DEQ plays a critical role in improving people's lives in every corner of our state. Our 1,700 employees work to safeguard our air, our land, and our water to protect public health and to ensure prosperity for families and communities alike. We have dozens of issues before us every single day at DEQ, from mapping 4,000 landslides after Helene to managing fragile populations of blue crabs in our coastal waters and everything in between. But right now, our department's top 3 priorities reflect both the urgency and the opportunities of this moment. Those priorities are these: continuing to help mountain communities recover and rebuild from Hurricane Helene and be more resilient to future weather hazards, reducing people's exposure to harmful forever chemicals like PFAS, Gen X, and 1,4-dioxane, and third, strengthening the resilience of our communities to future intense storms and other natural disasters. Interesting thing, making progress on all 3 of those priorities depends on having a sound, modern infrastructure system. The importance of a 21st century infrastructure, whether it's drinking water, roads, bridges, dams, airports, the importance of those to our health and to our economic success cannot be overstated. That's why today's infrastructure report is big news. It's a wake-up call for all of us. When people turn on their tap, they expect and deserve that water comes out is clean and healthy for them to drink. And everyone wants our rivers, lakes, and streams to be clean enough, safe enough for fishing, swimming, and wildlife. So to meet those needs, our Division of Water Infrastructure at DEQ invests heavily in drinking water, wastewater, and septic systems, stormwater as well, providing grants and loans in all 100 counties over the years. And we currently have more than $6.5 billion of funding obligated to projects, including $877 million just in 2025 alone. And of that $877 million, $356 million was for repairs to systems damaged by Hurricane Helene. Now, a key requirement of every single one of those Helene projects is that it makes that system more resilient to future weather events, because we know they are sure to come. So we are doing a lot on water infrastructure, but we have an estimated $40 billion needed just to maintain systems that treat our drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater. Billions more are needed to address forever chemicals like PFAS, accommodate population growth, and make communities less vulnerable to natural disasters. Speaking of natural disasters, and these were mentioned, but we have had 3 1,000-year storms in the last 8 years, Matthew, Florence, Helene, and we've seen that each one has devastated our infrastructure in different ways. So it only makes sense to build more resilient infrastructure for the future. And DEQ is the Stein administration's lead agency on strengthening communities' resilience to natural disasters. For instance, our flood resiliency blueprint has provided local governments with critical data so they can prioritize their resiliency projects, and we have awarded $36 million to 73 different projects to strengthen resilience in those communities, everything from enlarging culverts to stream debris removal to natural infrastructure projects like constructed wetlands. We also have a resilient coastal communities program that's been in place for years, and in the past year, we funded $6 million worth of projects. I think it was 60 projects along the coastal plain to help those communities be more resilient. So in addition to water projects, resiliency projects, a big part of our work is also focused on dam safety. There are more than 7,000 dams in our state, and about 1,700 of those are high hazard, which theoretically put a great number of North Carolinians at risk. And the engineer's report states that the backlog in repairing these high hazard dams totals nearly $3 billion. Right now, we are focused on repairing the 40+ dams in Western North Carolina that were damaged by Helene. And just as an aside, our staff inspected more than 400 dams after that storm came through. So in the coming weeks, we'll make announcements about awards of $7.4 million to dam repair projects in the mountains. And not long from now, we'll open up another round of applications for an additional $2.6 million for dam repair in the mountains. But so much more than that is needed. I've been to Chimney Rock a few times, both before and after the storm. But that town needs a new dam, and estimates are that it could cost as much as $100 million or more, just one dam. So I want to say that DEQ welcomes the Society's infrastructure report because it shows the work that we all need to do to support not only the health of North Carolina families, but also the economic health of our state and our businesses. I read through the report's recommendations, and obviously key among them is the need for significantly more funding from state and federal and local sources. But I want to say I greatly appreciate the funding we have gotten from Congress and our state legislature in recent years. Since 2021, funding for water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure has increased significantly. But as we've discussed, the need is so much greater. In encouraging news from Washington, both the U.S. House and Senate recently overwhelmingly passed bills for some of the agencies, but that includes EPA, and the funding levels are roughly level with previous years. The EPA bill still requires the president's signature, but assuming he does that, we can count on, at least for this next year, relatively stable numbers for federal funding for drinking water and wastewater infrastructure projects. I want to close by thanking engineers again for the critical role you all play in improving our infrastructure. We look forward to working with the Society and other organizations to strengthen our infrastructure and make North Carolina a more healthy and vibrant state for everyone who's lucky enough to live here. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Secretary Wilson. Our next guest speaker today is Patrick Norman, the Chief Engineer of the North Carolina Department of Transportation. He's worked for NCDOT for more than 2 decades. During that time, he's held several positions, including the Chief Engineer for the department's Turnpike Authority. He's a registered professional engineer and understands how important reliable, safe infrastructure is. Patrick, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, good morning, and thank you, Chas, for that introduction. I want to thank ASCE for inviting me to come speak today and for your interest and commitment to improving North Carolina's infrastructure. I think through my remarks, you'll hear some common themes that have already been stated from Secretary Wilson, Patrick, and Chas. And so NCDOT is grateful for the ongoing support of our state and federal leaders in funding transportation needs, and for our many partners, including ASCE, for helping keep these critical infrastructure conversations at the front and center. NCDOT maintains the second largest system in the nation, second only to Texas, and such a system of such large scale doesn't come without its challenges. North Carolina is the 9th most populous state, and by 2040, we're expecting another 2 million people to move to North Carolina. We're projected to be the 7th, potentially even the 6th most populous state at that time. So while this growth is exciting, we must acknowledge and be prepared for the increasing demand this will undoubtedly place on our infrastructure. As we all know, the cost of doing business is at an all-time high. In the past 3 years, the National Highway Construction Cost Index jumped 67% compared to just 22% over the previous 14 years. This has greatly impacted our ability to deliver projects, despite the increases in funding we've received from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as at the local level from the state legislature in reallocating some state sales tax to transportation. On top of this, has been mentioned, we faced the most destructive storm in our state's history, Hurricane Helene. Our communities were hit harder than ever, leaving us with nearly a $5.8 billion in damages to our state-maintained transportation network. And for reference, Hurricane Florence and Matthew were mentioned earlier. The combined total in repairs for those 2 storms was only $500 million. So you're talking about a 10 times more expensive storm in just Hurricane Helene alone. Recovering from Helene remains a top priority for us, and thanks to the dedication of our staff and partners, we made significant progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done. These recovery efforts have underscored the resilience of our teams, but they've also revealed vulnerabilities in our infrastructure. The department has internal benchmarks in place to measure our success, identify areas in need of improvement, and to assess the overall health of our infrastructure. We work under many general statutes, one of which requires us to survey the conditions of our state highway systems annually and to prepare a report of the findings. This report, called the Maintenance Operations Performance Analysis Report, or MOPAR, which is also referenced in the ASCE scorecard, includes various metrics that NCDOT uses to rate our asset conditions. The performance measures described in the MOPAR aren't just numbers, they're indicators of how well we are serving the needs of our residents. Intentional and proactive maintenance of our highway system is critical to our mission of connecting people, products, and places safely and efficiently. So today I want to speak briefly about the conditions of our bridges, roadways, using the MOPAR findings, and also touch briefly on North Carolina's aviation and airport systems. North Carolina's bridge portfolio consists of over 13,700 bridges statewide. In the MOPAR, we include bridge conditions as part of our performance goal of delivering effective and efficient infrastructure. During the most recent report, 82% of our bridges were rated in good condition, only 8.4 rated in poor condition. Of course, our goal is to improve this score as always, and by 2030 is our goal to have fewer than 1% bridges in poor condition on our interstate system, fewer than 4% on our primary system, and fewer than 9% on the secondary system. And if we're able to meet these goals, it will reduce our overall statewide percentage from 8.4 to 7% in poor condition. We do anticipate that increased funding will be required for the bridge program to be able to overcome the impacts of inflation, system growth, and of course, our own aging infrastructure. So in order to continue the recent trends of improvement, we will anticipate more funding needs before the year 2030. As for our roadway system, we manage over 81,000 miles of state-maintained highways. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the second largest system in the country, second only to Texas. This includes over 15,000 miles of interstate and primary routes and over 66,000 miles of secondary roadways. Our pavement conditions are assessed each year through our automated pavement condition survey process. And we break down the percentage of good conditions per system, including interstates, primaries, and secondary roadways. As of the latest MOPAR, 89% of our interstate routes were in good condition. Our primary saw 62% in good condition, followed by our secondary routes at just over 70% in good condition. So overall, our analysis shows both funding limitations and trade-offs are necessary. While the proportion of secondary routes in good condition increased, so did the share of primary routes in fair or poor condition. This was due to a shift in our priorities. Our secondary routes in poor condition were increasing, so a directed effort was made to improve these scores statewide. This required more investment in a secondary system to reach good condition, so we allocated additional fundings toward those routes. This did improve their performance, but it also meant fewer resources for primary routes, resulting in a slight decline in the overall condition of our primary system. So as you've heard, a roadway system of such large scale requires substantial financial investment to properly maintain it. And while significant investments are happening, we still do not meet industry standards for pavement preservation and resurfacing cycles across our network. System by system improvements are gradual and take time, and most often result in a reduction in performance across other asset classes within the network. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the success of our aviation division. As mentioned before, North Carolina has 72 publicly owned airports and contributes $88 billion to our state's economy annually. They support 427,000 jobs each year, generate $34 billion in personal income, and return over $4.8 billion in state and local tax revenues to the state. Last year, more than 74 million passengers traveling used our airports. Some of our most notable contributions were during the response for Hurricane Helene, where our aviation division's early emergency response in the western communities simply wouldn't have been possible without their prompt action. Their teams made countless trips delivering urgent aid quickly and efficiently. Our aviation division's crewed and uncrewed air missions informed our recovery efforts for both search and rescue. Their involvement played a critical role in repairing our infrastructure in the mountains. And so North Carolina is known for its strong funding of both commercial and general service aviation airports as compared to our peer states. And while North Carolina DOT does not directly manage airport or other aviation infrastructure, our aviation division does manage various state and federal airport development grant programs that are critical to project delivery at the local level. Aviation continues to be a cornerstone of North Carolina's economy. driving growth and innovation and opportunity. So there's always room for growth, and continuous support and funding is needed to help us to continue driving innovation forward, delivering leading edge services and creating a strong aviation economy. We are grateful for the North Carolina General Assembly and the Federal Aviation Administration for the funding the state has received for our airport infrastructure. So in conclusion, we know that North Carolina's transportation system is the backbone of our economy and directly influences our community's success. We've seen its strength in times of growth and its vulnerability in times of crisis. As we continue to recover from Helene and prepare for the demands of tomorrow, we must remain committed to resilience, innovation, and collaboration. Continued support from our federal and state legislators, along with strong partnerships, is essential, not only to maintain progress, but to secure the funding we need to meet the growing demands of our network. Together, we can improve North Carolina's infrastructure to better serve the needs of the day and stand ready for the challenges ahead. I want to thank you all for your efforts towards prioritizing transportation infrastructure and for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Much appreciated. Now I'd like to open the floor to any questions you may have. Please state your name and organization when asking questions. If there's anything we can't address right now, we're more than happy to connect with you, with our report card authors, for more specific information after the event ends. Yes, sir. So this was a group of dedicated volunteers that looked at all these categories that you see up right now. We weren't going to take on a category that we feel we didn't have sufficient work to do the data to have a comprehensive report.
Any other questions? All right.
So again, please reach out to us if you have any questions afterwards, and we'd be more than happy to talk with them.
Go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions and valuable insights. I'd like to close by saying that the future of our state relies on our ability to maintain and improve upon the current conditions of our infrastructure networks. These systems drive economic growth, create jobs, improve public health, and protect us from environmental threats. We work hard to build and maintain our systems for the public health, safety, and welfare. We ask that our policymakers review the 2026 report card for North Carolina's infrastructure when making infrastructure policy that affects our citizens. I'd like to once again thank our committee who diligently completed the report card this year, making sure these chapters were thoroughly researched and objectively critiqued. You will now be able to find the full report at infrastructurereportcard.org/North-Carolina. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to email us at reportcard@asce.org. Again, the email address is reportcard@asce.org. Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it.